Yeah.
hold on. I got to play devil's advocate. You're inconsistent. You say you want free speech, but then when the speech gets uncomfortable, first of all, people have a right to say that they don't want to do business with Israel if they don't want to do business with Israel. But when they gather in large numbers in the presence of Jewish students and faculty and are vituperative and over-the-top expressive in how they want you to know that they don't want to do business with them, they're in your face shouting at you as a Jewish person when you know that there's anti-Jewish enmity lingering around the edges of these people's speech. You don't want to go to that university, certainly don't want to support that university. You feel like you're a less than person within that environment. I can understand that. Let's talk about boycott, divest, and sanction.
Yes,
You're very
yes.
concerned about that.
Yeah.
Tell me, what are you doing? What's going on at your campus? How are you trying to respond to that set of initiatives?
Yeah, so that was a concern on our campus and many campuses. And I think when you look at BDS, so let's just begin with my concern about BDS. Okay.
Can you just explain? I mean, I know everybody knows, but can you just explain what it is?
Boycott, divest, and sanctions towards Israel. And it really, I think, got its teeth. There was an organization in the U.S. in 2005 that called for academic boycott, like purging of Israeli scholars, of teachings about, the kind of stuff, as someone also who's been active in the AEUP, our chapter on campus around academic freedom issues. Academic boycotts to me are indefensible. Right. Let me go
on the record agreeing with you. I think it's outrageous. Not to mention the fact that a big chunk of the economics profession would be gone if you cut out the Israeli economists. I would miss them. But it's so anti-intellectual in the extreme.
And it's taken root, right? The American Anthropological Association voted and has now implemented a boycott of all Israeli anthropologists. They can no longer attend those meetings. They're no longer
that's
affiliated.
Outrageous.
That's outrageous. And it's happening, I think, even more aggressively in Europe and like other countries. Like this is not just some fear. That this is happening.
You're isolating. You're trying to say there's a moral sanction. You're not going to do business with. You're not going to honor. You're not going to include. Like with the South African situation or with the Soviets. Not the Soviets, the Russians with the war in Ukraine, stuff like that. So that's what that is. And I'm in agreement with you that cutting off intellectual ties between universities as an expression of your political revulsion at a government's activities is entirely inappropriate. But if I said, I don't want to patronize a certain set of businesses because I don't like what they stand for, I don't like the way they do business, I'm not sure I see that there's a particular moral problem with that. People are free to do that.
That's your choice. And for me, and why we got involved in sending messages to the university leadership of our concerns about BDS at UD. For me personally, I think students have the right to protest and call for that, in theory. But, I think that they have the right. Of course.
So what's the problem?
The problem is what we've come to understand happens in a lot of, in places, particularly the UC system, right? And that is these protests become really really hostile, alienating, threatening. I know more about activities online by protesters attacking Jewish students. The climate becomes very, very hostile, and we saw it. And so that's where a huge concern for me and why I wanted to get involved in my university. I truly believe that if that kind of protest continues, Jewish students will leave the University of Delaware. I know for a fact, too, that parents of new undergrads at our Blue and Gold days are asking those questions. I'm concerned about the safety of my kid coming to this school, and the response to that, too, is, in many ways, not a First Amendment issue anymore, right? I mean, it's rules and regulations of the university to protect the safety. So I am a supporter of free speech and expression, but when it crosses over into threats and hostilities, which we've seen that it has, the university has to get involved. And I'm not sure if my message and my colleagues' message led them to get involved, but they did get involved. And they allowed the students to march, and students from other universities came and they marched, and they were there till 11 o'clock at night, several hundred of them, but it was peaceful. And then, and then it ended. And if they did it again, that would be, I think they have that right. I think BDS, when it leads to this relentless attack, anti-Israel and threatening, even though I think it's probably true. I've heard your colleague, who's I respect tremendously from Brown, who's the Holocaust historian, Bartov, Omer
Bartov.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have so much respect for him.
Oh, I've had him on the show, actually.
Yeah, I watched. I loved the episode.
But wait a minute, Ben. I can't let you filibuster. I gotta say something.
He just said though that he went out to the encampments, and what he experienced was a lot of the dialogue. The experience was not anti-Semitic. It was peaceful. Yeah. It was that hope. So I'm not totally convinced that blocking expression of speech, even in the encampment context, necessarily means a hostile campus. But I think there's enough evidence that and enough concern expressed by Jewish students, their parents, all across this country, faculty, that those concerns are serious and they're warranted. And as we said at the beginning of the discussion, this is going to happen again.
Okay, hold on. I got to play devil's advocate. I'm gonna push back. You're inconsistent. You say you don't. You say you want free speech, but then when the speech gets uncomfortable,
I don't know if it's uncomfortable. It's more.
Well, hold on.
Threatening.
Well, one thing at a time. First of all, people have a right to say that they don't want to do business with Israel if they don't want to do business with Israel. But when they gather in large numbers in the presence of Jewish students and faculty and are vituperative and over-the-top expressive in how they want you to know that they don't want to do business with me, they're in your face, shouting at you. As a Jewish person, when you know that there's anti-Jewish enmity lingering around the edges of these people's speech, you don't want to go to that university. You certainly don't want to support that university. You feel like you're a less than person within that environment. I can understand that. I mean, if back during the days when segregation was breaking down, the few black students on the mostly white campuses had to face mobs of white students shouting in their face, "You Negroes don't belong here. You Negroes don't belong here." Of course, that would be intolerable. And you would expect the university to step in and protect those Negroes, quote unquote Negroes. Likewise, here, you would expect the university to be sensitive to, aware of, responsive to the impact upon Jewish students from that kind of thing. But is, there's a war going on, and a lot of people have very strong feelings about what's happening. They are identifying with the Palestinians who are being buried under rubble. You want them to have free speech. You think you can make that stay nice? Stay all polite with the I's dotted and the T's crossed? Nobody's going to get on the edge a little bit in that kind of a conversation? You can't have free speech, and again, you could give many different examples. Anti-war protests that gets out of hand, or Donald Trump enthusiasm that gets out of hand. Speech is not easily contained. And if you really are sincere about allowing them to have free speech, you got to be prepared for them to make you uncomfortable. Read Nazis marching in Skokie in front of Holocaust survivors. So I'm not sure you can have it both ways, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I am being inconsistent. and this is the crux of the matter for me. I think this is one that has been really challenging, really challenging. And I have erred on the side of, the messiness that is and has always been anti-war protests, civil rights protests. I mean, on and on, right? It's messy. And with this war, the protests are going to happen and they're going to be messy. I'm having a very difficult time with this one, Glenn, in all honesty. And by my actions have demonstrated that. My actions have demonstrated that I'm not comfortable with the BDS constant presence on the campus. Now, if it was a lawsuit, there's probably a good chance they would be protected. Although we're seeing some horrific things, right, with the police being mobilized and beating up kids and pulling them off the campus. Like, that's the other side of this that also horrifies. But when push comes to shove, I'm deeply concerned about that messiness. And I think that's also informed too by inescapably the history, right, of these actions against Jews, not only this leading to muzzling, but then, boycotts and just a horrific kind of situation all around the world, for Jews that is rooted in, that history. So this is why I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you, but also to be someone who is really strong First Amendment and was involved with our union and has spoken out against, previously, even those who've been critical of Israel being, terminated from positions. In some of those instances, I think it's a demonstration of anti-free speech, no question.